So I think they're having a bit of small chat first. I'm guessing every one of these players is a bit nervous. There is a special sort of weight that these three games will feel. And for everyone at home, logistically, after every round today, there will be a break until all the games finish so that pairings can be updated after each round to reflect the most recent records.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most exciting times in a tournament when everyone gathers around the standings board after each game and is waiting to see who they'll get to play and how the pairings will shake out. Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like Joey has drawn tiles. Uh, we will get that shortly, but he has some synergy there. He has tired, but he also has a W and a V with that. So, but he's playing quickly in classic Joey style. Quickly, he's playing wived, which I think makes a lot of sense there. Nothing to complain about on my end.
Yeah, I think the V and W are really gross tiles, and doubling one of them on a double letter score and scoring a whole bunch of points, and getting rid of the V and the W makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so meanwhile, while you're Joe, he has picked up a bunch of clunky tiles, like the G, C, B, P. They don't really go well together. They don't mix well. So I might be looking for a play like Bog uh, off of the E and the D in Wive to make D and Odd as well. What's jumping out at you?
Yeah, that was the same play I saw immediately. I think the B and G are the two worst of those four consonants. And, being able to get rid of those, keep clip, which those letters, they have some synergy. It's a word that could be possibly played even. And yeah, just doesn't give too many points back to Joey. Seems to make sense to me. It looks like Joe is going for a different play. He's playing biopic, which also looks pretty good. Scoring some points, getting rid of three of those consonants. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think
I
that's
think I
a
might.
fine
Yeah,
idea. Yeah, I
yeah.
like either play. And I think, as we've said before, some of these moves, it's a stylistic preference thing to some extent. I
Hmm.
think I tend to definitely play more constricted and closed. Joe can find a lot of those like vigil to vigilance
Hmm.
sort of plays, and with that, you start playing more open if that's your strength. So I think it fits his style really well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I might have done Bog myself just because I don't like the G very much. I find it kind of clunky and hard to deal with. But there's also something to be said for getting rid of a couple more consonants, and to not risk, drawing a rack of, potentially having six consonants on your rack.
Yeah, and Joey is taking time here, interestingly, which we don't normally see with him early in the game. It's sort of like how chess players, if you watch like the FIDE candidates tournament, for instance, they like have this prep. It feels like Joey like speeds through his first six turns or something, but this is an exception.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough rack. Um, I might try to hold on to the X, though there's not any great possibilities for it that I'm seeing. Maybe he could do ticks with it this turn, or something like GITCH through the sea of biopic. Not sure which of those you might prefer, Morris.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if he's looking to see if there's any way to set up his X here, just because this board's pretty limited. But it looks like he's just going to play ticks. That would have been my first instinct to look to see if there's a setup like Tiger, for instance, would have been something I would have thought of through the E in Wive to potentially set up a huge X bomb. But I think he correctly deduced that that spot will almost always be blocked back if Joe has opportunity. But Joe is playing very quickly. Uh, and he is going to
Okay.
be playing.
He has
Yeah,
Gloriole.
yes,
So nicely finding his only available bingo. And
yeah,
yeah.
very nice find. And this time, I don't think we've ever, or maybe we've once seen Joey be the person who still needs to draw tiles. I feel like Joey's always doing that to the other person. So, uh, yeah, maybe Joe knew that this is Joey's style and wanted to send him a quick message like, "Hey, I might be older than you, but I can be just as fast, buddy."
Yeah, he's given him a taste of his own medicine. Um, yeah, Joe and Joey have played a whole bunch of games. I looked it up before, and they've played 29 tournament games. So I'm sure Joe is well aware of Joey's playing style.
Yeah, and Edley is not drawing the tiles he'd want. Although he does have things like
No.
Meaty next turn, anyways. But Joey has Fright set up.
Hmm.
I'm guessing he will eventually play through the G and keep his G, just because Fright uh, does score 51, and but it looks like he's going
Mm,
with Flight instead. This is interesting. Maybe he was scared of
interesting.
Frighten hooks or something, or extensions, something like that. That would go to the other triple, and it's really easy for your opponent to have those often, even after a bingo, just because the E is the most common tile. So Flight is the play. It is 9 fewer points, though, than Fright. It does keep a nicer R, but still, I think I would probably go with Fright there. It's a close call.
Yeah, I actually like Joey's decision here. I think keeping two Gs, especially, is really not ideal. And even though he's sacrificing 9 points, the Frighten extension that you mentioned would be, I think, 45 points, something around there. So that's an easy 45 points with that wouldn't really give much back to Joey. So I don't
Yeah.
know what might technically be right, but yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so instant media play. Unfortunately, midwived was available. I only saw that from
Ooh.
Quackle after entering the play. So uh, I feel like that would have been in Joe's capacity to play. So that is one thing to keep in mind when you start fast playing a player, that you can't sacrifice points of your own. And yeah, I mean, midwife, even though it doesn't get rid of the second eye, that is 54 points, I think it would have been. If
Yeah, that would
anyone
be a
could
huge play.
Yeah, if anyone can think of other wived front hooks, we'd love to hear them.
49.
Yeah, I don't think like huswived is a word, for instance. I'm just trying to think of wife words that as a starting point. But Joey plays Gazer here. Very, very good play. It scores a ton by tripling the Z and also playing off an X. I think that's 49 points.
Yeah, that seems very good. Getting rid of one of his two R's, which really don't go well together, scoring a ton of points. Yeah, they're both playing super fast here, so it's tough to keep up. But I think
Yeah,
there Joey made the right call.
Yeah, I think that's Chloe's nice way of saying, Morris, you need to stop talking so much. So I'll
No.
take that note. But it looks like Joe has OI set up. I'm guessing that's going to go above the O and or the H and T in flight. But it looks like he put it back.
Yeah, seems reasonable. I wonder if there's a way to get rid of maybe one more vowel,
Yeah, well, he could
but
always do something like oidia through the D in media if you want to get rid of a bunch of vowels. Uh,
right.
So it looks like that's actually what he's
Oh
opting
yeah,
to do. I would still maybe play OI there, though he is down now
yeah.
points wise after Gazer, so I understand the logic here.
148 to 122.
Yeah, I think I also prefer OI slightly. Just I don't know if it's quite worth the point sacrifice, but it's probably pretty close either way.
Yeah, but he does at least get rid of 4 eyes across 2 turns, which is no easy feat.
Yeah.
And there's actually only 1 eye left in the bag at this point. If you look, there have already been 8 eyes played in only 4 turns apiece. So, yeah, since the Q hasn't been played yet, for instance, we could be having a Q stick maybe situation if the Q doesn't come out soon enough. Luckily, all 4 U's haven't been played yet, but that is a storyline to monitor here potentially in this game. Will the eyes impact how burdensome the Q is?
Right, yeah, and I think that deficit of eyes might be another reason to play OI and keep one because the eye is a very good tile. I think Scrabble players might be slightly opposed to it sometimes because of how bad two eyes are when you have the chance to draw a second one. But with only one eye out, that seems pretty unlikely. So I think holding on to the eye might have been a good move.
Yeah, we've said throughout this stream that and Joey does make a play of a Torn. I think he just wanted to take care of the spot at this point. Maybe he thought after Joe played so many vowels, he might now be closer to bingos at this point. So it seems like
Yeah,
a.
that's interesting.
Oh no, go for it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna, I was just gonna say vlog on top of or go to the G of Glorial seemed like a pretty good play, keeping RANT, just a really synergistic and bingo friendly leave. And the V is not a very good tile, but yeah, there is some good merit to bingo defense in a torn.
Yeah. So it's a bit pixelated for me. Is that obese that comes down?
Um, yes, obese making gazers.
Awesome. So that is a very nice play. Keeps EN. Yeah, it seems very reasonable.
Hey, I might
What
Meanwhile,
now?
like that.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, they're talking
No,
about
it's
something
okay if
right
you do,
now.
but
I'm
not
just-
my
So,
Yeah, I'm just
Having
and they
an
both look
animated
kind of frustrated.
conversation.
They looked frustrated, both of them. So, yeah, but it looks like they're fine again. So I don't know what that was. Maybe Joey's like, "You calling me obese?" I don't know. So, in the meantime, though, I love this style of Joe is doing. He's fast playing Joey. He's getting him rattled. Joey's in, or Joe's in Joey's head now. But Vela
32.
comes down, keeping ESU. I think
154.
probably best scoring play. You might consider trying to do something like values and swived instead there, but if you want to be a bit safer, but I think Vela is fine too.
Yeah, I might be slightly concerned about keeping a U with three more out, but something like Uvia or Uveal set up underneath obese would set up a really dangerous triple spots under to parallel under Uveal or Uvia. So I think Vela makes sense for scoring, and USE is not at any by any means a bad lead, or I wouldn't say it's terrible.
Yeah, and right now, this I'm guessing Joe will take a few minutes here, just because he's been playing so quickly. He's, I think, taken less than a minute every single one of his turns up to this point. And he has really good bingo letters, so he will have some eights that are playable. But if you look at the board right now, unless you have an S bingo, bingo ending in S, I should say, making swived, there really isn't that many. There isn't really that many high scoring bingo spots. So he could play to the E in Vela, a lot of different words, and there is exactly one bingo he can play through the A in Oidia, and I'm only see that because I'm looking at the engine that would double it. So if 66 is the most points you can score, you're going to start looking to see. No, I can't be only scoring 66 here. These bingo letters are too good. I'm sure he'll take some time to try to find something better.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Usually with such a good rack, you expect to be scoring a bit more than 66 on a pretty open board, especially with that V hanging in the triple column. I would be looking for a long time for a bingo, if not a triple triple through that V. But yeah, nothing there available. So
Yeah.
I wonder, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just the V is in an awkward enough position there, right? Like Levanted is an 8 or through right that V, but it's just too far
Right,
down. So I think he'll eventually have to settle. I mean, would you consider doing a play like a Torrent here, keeping anti blank for 27 points?
Yeah, I actually.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I was gonna say I really like that. I wouldn't be thrilled about any of these bingos emanated. The one you mentioned through the A of Oidia, or Oidia, gives back, points making parallel plays on the triple on the right side of emanated if that were to go down. And then any other bingo, just nothing scores very well. A Torn scores 27, keeps a killer leave that could even possibly draw into a triple triple next turn, if not just a higher scoring bingo, maybe something ending in S, making swived like you mentioned earlier. So yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, so maybe let's flip to the Quackle Corner to sort of process how you think about a bingo versus non-bingo here. So we have a torn setup right now. So let's just see what happens after a torn. So if Joey will enter in his tiles, so he'll play, let's say, something like Uni to keep a strong Earns leave. And then if you're Joe, I just have a random rack here. Well, in this case, drew NO and Innovate can come down. But let's just say, I don't know, there's a lot of R's and E's left. So if I drew RE, well, that's Enervate. So all of a sudden, you can see you can get triples often in this case, and a Torn still scores 27. Whereas if we went to a bingo right away, so let's just say Emanated, it will be 66 points. Well, Joey, then you're giving him a better spot also to work with. So, but luckily in this case, he won't be able to do much. So let's just say he goes new instead here for 13 points. And now let's give Joe a random rack. The best play that Quackle finds for this random rack right away is only 13 points for Muon. So again, this is a constructed example, and let's flip back to the board since Joe is now playing a bingo, it looks like. But this is maybe the logic you want to think about when you're considering bingo versus non-bingo. How many points will I score this turn? How many points will I score the turn after? And I think a torn will often outpace any bingo in a 2-turn sequence. So he does play
I noticed in
10D.
chat someone mentioned. Oh, yeah.
No,
Sorry,
no, it's all good. I was just going to say attendee, but go for it.
Yeah.
But what did chat say?
Oh, yeah. So people were mentioning how Joe was scribbling and staring at his score sheet a lot, which to Joey could signal that he has a blank, just because often when players have a blank, it's harder to come up with all the different possibilities that letter could be. So you're going to be writing down different options, especially when there's different spots on the board. So that could signal to Joey that he had that blank, and might lead Joey to block the V spot, which would have been an interesting sequence had he not played a bingo and done something like a torn instead. But Joey has a somewhat bingo friendly rack, these low scoring tiles, and he has an S, which is really useful for the swived hook. No bingos this turn, but a fishing play like NU, parallel to attendee,
14.
making NE and UN looks like a pretty solid fishing play to me.
Yeah,
and it's what he does.
Yeah, that's exactly what he does. It's like he's listening to you or something. So with that, Joey narrows down the deficit now. It is 215 to 218, 3-point lead for Joe Edley. But Joe does have some hefty tiles, which could play fairly nicely on this board. Specifically, you might be trying to get rid of the K or the F or both this turn. What stands out to you right now?
Yeah, let's see. I think Kufi parallel to Medii, making
Nice.
Emu and F, getting rid of the K, U, and F.
Yeah, that's a really solid idea. I mean, those are basically the three clunkiest tiles. So
I think
it looks like for a second we lost Chloe. So be patient. Chloe's actually coming into us from Europe right now. She's on a trip and wanted to still commentate Scrabble. So it shows how much dedication we have in our community that people travel to all these exotic places. Like, no, I still want to watch and talk about Scrabble.
Yeah, I couldn't miss it.
But Kufi does come down. So Chloe's just predicting plays left and right like a baller. But Joey did pick up the Q, but also picked up a U. So luckily, the lack of eyes isn't going to slow him down too much. In fact, this poll actually really helps him as he's going to be playing Queen, I assume. Oh, no, he goes with Quern. And he's probably looking at the contents of the bag and thinking there aren't enough vowels to justify playing my vowel.
Yeah, I wonder. Let me take a closer look. Yeah. I guess the bag there's not too many vowels left. There are a bunch of A's, or more A's than any other vowel. 3 A's, one E, one O, one U. But I think when there's so many fewer consonants that even keeping the less ideal vowel, sorry, when there's so few vowels, keeping the one that there's the most of is still somewhat necessary.
Yeah, and Joe drew a lot of good tiles there. He kept HIOT. There aren't that many vowels in general. He drew two vowels and the blank. So that seems like a huge
Oh
pull
man.
for him. Uh, yeah, I mean, he's not going to be able to bingo this turn as Ashiot, I don't think plays anywhere. That's ACHIOTE. But yeah, I guess what's jumping out at you here, Chloe?
Yeah, I would probably just try to score some points with the H. What I can't see the board very well. Um, but yeah, what do you think? Just something like,
I think Ovate looks pretty good off the V
yeah.
and Bella, keeping HI blank. Scores 26. Uh, the play I missed, actually, which is even cooler, is EFA, or EFA, I'm never know how to pronounce this one, EPHA off the P in biopic. So that will score 34 points if Joe finds it. And normally IoT isn't the most friendly leave, given that there's no more eyes left from Joe's perspective and there's only one more O left. It's a bit better than normal because you can't double either of those vowels most likely.
Right. Yeah, I think EFA just scores a bunch of points, which is really, what you want to do when you're building toward a bingo and you're going to be taking a lead probably at some point if you can get that bingo down, just building up your score so you're up by even more than the bingo would be really helpful. But Ovate also looks good to me. I think the H is a really good tile and it works pretty well for bingos as well. So I don't think that would be too bad either. And it
Yeah,
looks
so
like that's what he's going to play.
yeah, and specifically, I mean, I think the chat also noticed this that the H pairs really nicely right after the G in the first row, right, and he's keeping an I as well, so he has
Mm.
IGH. So right, EIGH words, for instance, there's a lot of them. He could have actually designated his blank that turn, like if he played away last turn, it would have been 53 points. So I think the H here is a super powerful tile. Um, and yeah, I think it's a very smart decision to keep that.
Yeah, that is very astute of Joe if he noticed that. I think, yeah, that's a great spot. And, scoring those points will be huge for him.
Yeah, and so Joe did draw some good letters, so he will be able to bingo next turn. We'll see for how much based on what Joey plays here. I think, for instance, In Phase and Swive should be available often.
Oh, yeah.
So meanwhile, though, Joey has an interesting set of letters. I mean, the double Y is never good, but I feel like you can score a bit.
Yeah. Yays, you'd like, yeah, that looks pretty good on top of Swived. Keeping an S, it's fine to play one of your S's. It scores well, gets rid of both of the Y's. I would like that. Looks like he's
Oh,
playing DIS.
this is interesting. So I'm wondering if he's seeing a specific option with two Ys, because normally, yeah, you'd want to take a Swive token, I'd assume.
Yeah, I agree. Especially knowing there's a blank out, there's another S out. Not that the S in the sixth position of a word is necessarily the best, but it's not the worst for placing a bingo either. So I wonder if he was going for something.
Yeah, and the chat does find plainish and panfish as the two words that go in the Swive spot, but also double the H. In phase is the third one. That was the one we mentioned earlier, but that doesn't double the H, so it's 8 fewer points.
Right.
He doesn't actually go there, though. He decides to play hat pins instead, or harpins. I'm actually not sure which it would be. If we can find that out, that would be great.
Yeah, that does seem a bit strange. I think those ones making hooking swive just score so much better. And I wonder if he wanted to take out the easier bingo lane by playing hat pins because this makes bingos pretty much impossible for the whole bottom of the board. So yeah, I wonder what his thinking was, or if he just didn't notice the swived spot.
Yes. So we just got word from the producers the blank is confirmed to be a T specifically. An R actually is a more defensive option there because T can take more two-letter words behind it than an R, which can only take Ray, the second musical note. And yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering if they are just blind to Swived right now. I mean, both have passed on it 2 turns in a row. I think it really could be possible, and like it's something that yeah you maybe even noticed at first with Wive when Wive came down, but it could be something you forget mid game.
Yeah, especially with Quern sort of blocking that spot for bingo ending in S, you might just sort of discard it for later on. I think someone said something like that. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think if Joey had seen yays there, that seemed like, just based on the leave and score, it seemed like a pretty good play. And same thing with the bingos that Joe could have played.
yeah, and so Joey I think made a pretty standard play here of Yo for 31. It's close to his best scoring option there, and starts to balance things out a bit for him. But the game is almost over, actually. They've been playing so fast. You can see there's only one tile left in the bag. So this will be interesting. Joe almost has natural, but not quite. But yeah, Joe can take a lot of time on this turn, and this will be interesting to think about as he has turns set up on his rack. So, how would you think about this game from Joe's perspective at this point?
Yeah, the first thing I do is just look at the remaining tiles in the bag and try to figure out if there's any possible bingos that Joey could have and bingos that would play for him. I don't see any. I think, at least, yeah, I'm not seeing any bingos unless there's something with lots of consonants that I just don't know. Because the pool right now is ACEJMSWY, I believe. Um, so not very conducive to a bingo. So then I would just realize or think to myself, okay, I need to go out and use up all my tiles before Joey does and prevent him from, scoring just a bunch of points to catch up to me somehow. So I just look for the best sequence of plays to no matter what tiles in the bag. So I think I'd be most concerned about drawing the J, possibly. I don't know, maybe there's some good spots for the J actually, but it's generally like a pretty clunky tile. So yeah, just looking for plays for Joey that could score a lot with those high scoring tiles.
Yeah,
Um,
someone in the chat does point out attorneys is in play, which is a really nice extension. I think though that you have to be worried about the Swive took if you see it. It's very, very dangerous potentially, and I mean Joey could even maybe next turn. I guess no, Joe will empty the bag. I was going to say Cyanase could be something he fishes for or something to Swive. But yeah, the one other thing I'll add, as Joe looks like he's considering something, is that Joe is up 31 points here, which gives him a bit of wiggle room. So the first thing, as Chloe said, is look for things that, like bingos, that could decrease a 31-point deficit from Joey's perspective. And then after that, try to just do something sensible that will give you the advantage still. So we'll see if Joe takes a bit longer. Yeah. Are there any specific plays that's jumping out to you right now, Chloe?
I mean, nothing scores particularly well. I like turn, maybe, making Nan next to Quern and Attendee. Maybe just to get rid of a few tiles if possible. But that might give back some bigger scoring plays, actually. Like, yeah,
Well,
like
he did play
Game
rerun
or something.
So he
Rerun.
played. So I think he was nervous about the double R's, and so he picks up the J,
Huh.
and this will be a fun
Okay.
end game for Joey to work out. He is down 40, so this will be tough, but Joe will not be able to go out right away. So there may be something in here. Let's look for a bit. I think actually Joey will take a fair amount of time unless he sees a win right away, but you'll likely need to be very precise when you're 41 points down.
Yeah. It looks like Joe has a few scoring options with the J that should put him out of reach, even if Joey comes up with a good out in two sequence, but maybe, I mean, yeah, with all those scoring titles, there could be something. I wonder if you could go to championship player maybe.
Yeah, so let's
Um,
go to Quackle Corner. So uh, let's just show first before we turn to championship players. So the
or
general
yeah,
idea is something like, so if Joey plays K's or something here, he keeps Mew in at least one spot. Maybe he'll do Mew first or something. Let's say if he does Mew first, and then Joe would have. Oh, actually, no. You have to block jab first, I think. So if he does something like K's first, and then Joe has something like Haj, Joey would have Mew. Now that would still lose by 13, so it's not quite enough, but it does. You see, only 13 points down instead of 41 points down. That was just
right.
me quickly spitballing.
Right.
So
The chat oh sorry. The chat is pointing at CWMS in the same spot, holding on to attorney, which actually might be enough points. I'm not sure. No.
yeah,
Um,
so if we try CWMS, the potential response here, let's see. So Haj again is, I think, going to be enough to win. So if there's
right.
attorney after that, that won't end the game for Joey, and I think that's the key. That now Joe gets
Right.
to go out
He
with
can
lit or till off the eye and hat pins, and so that will give Joe a 10-point win.
right.
So in fact, there are no wins Quackle has found. Mew is the best play per Quackle.
Wow.
So that was my first instinct. But I would analyze this for a while, like Joe. Oh, actually, well, yeah, okay. So Mew, then jab, and then K's that sets up is the nice idea there. So
Right.
it's a
So a
tough
5 point
position.
win.
Yeah, it would be a
Yeah,
5-point win.
very.
So this is a tough position, but I think it's instructive that from Joey's position, even though he's down 41, that seems so out of reach. Really, like if instead we gave him the J, for instance, let's say we gave Joe the W instead. So let's just see what would have happened in that situation. So if if Joey has the J instead and can score a bit more, then he won't quite win, but it will be even closer, I think. So if he plays Jam, then they say the best play is Lax. That's a pretty weird looking play. So let's say the more human play would be something like AW. And then Joey would go for Attorney. And so it would be close still. But yeah, I don't know if there was any position where he could have even won, just given how well Joe was playing this game. So it's a tight one. Joey's still considering things, but maybe let's go back to the screen, as I'm guessing Joey will at some point realize he has nothing.
Yeah. In these end games, you always have to think of situations, or I like to think of situations where there's a chance my opponent might miss a spot for one of their tiles and like hope they blunder in some way and try to make something happen because of that. So like I might be inclined to block jab in case he blocks Haj, but I think at this level it's very low chances that that would happen. So I bet Joey will just go for the end game that minimizes the spread.
Yeah, I wonder what Joe has set up here right now with JAL, since he does have that separated. Is he looking somewhere specifically with that, do you think?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. No eye for jail. I think. Um, yeah, I don't know.
It seems curious. Maybe he's anticipating Joey plays something specific, but I don't even know what letter of Joey's would pair with JAL. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm slightly confused by
yeah.
Joe's rack orientation here, I guess.
Yeah, it is weird. He might just be, put them in, he might have just put them in a random order and um, hasn't thought about it much. But yeah, or maybe he wants to make Joey think he's got his tracking wrong and how could he have three letters set up next to each other? But I think that would be a little too, yeah, too much.
Yeah, but it does also go to show you that the A is a pretty key thing that Joe kept there on that last turn, just because Jab and Haj are both available to him to score 20 plus points. And that really is just enough to combat any out in two sequence that Joey has. And so it was quite, I mean, obviously he was choosing between turn and rerun, it looked like. And in both, he very much understood in the worst case scenario where I get the J, I need to keep an A here. I mean, maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but that seems like the key insight into his previous turn.
No, yeah, I don't think that's giving too much credit at all. I think you have to think about the worst case scenario. The least flexible tile that was in that pool was the J. So making sure that you would have multiple plays if you drew that J, like Jab and Hodge, was a very good observation, to not play the A on his last turn. Because if he had
Yes.
kept the U instead, I'm really not seeing many options for that J.
Yeah, and so the chat does point out one other nice option. If we can flip back to Quappa Corner, we can show why this doesn't quite work, but it's a really cool idea. So the chat suggested ace because SWAMY is a word. So, and that would go parallel, making discs and EW for a ton of points. The problem is, and this is key that Joe played rerun and not turn, Taj would just block it. So if he doesn't block it, if he misses that Swamy plays, and he plays jab, look who's going to win. Joey Krafchick, 68-point outplay, wins by less than 20, but it's still a win. So it's a really cool idea, but Taj does all the right stuff to block that idea if Joey finds it.
Right. Yeah, like I said earlier about hoping when you realize you've just lost a game, or yeah, there's no way you can win in the end game with optimal play from your opponent. I might be inclined to try ace and hope that Joe missed the SWAMY play and played his higher scoring jab. And there's always a chance your opponent misses one of your plays or has mistracked. Not that Joe is the one to do that, but just in the off chance that that happens, I think I try to hope that there's a chance my opponent makes a mistake and I can win that game somehow.
Yeah, and I think we can see right now Joey is EY separated from everything else, so he's probably looking at a tourney and trying to deduce, instead of an out in two sequence, a multiple turn out sequence. Yeah, let's maybe flip back to the board for a bit. And we can see Joey's time is dwindling. Have we ever seen Joey hit the 5-minute mark in this tournament?
Probably not.
He wants this win. He really wants this win.
Yeah. I mean, you got to consider all the options when you think you've lost a game. You never know if you're missing something.
Yeah, so this will it's easy for us to see on the screen having the Scrabble engine to just work this all out. But this is a really, really tough position to analyze if you're Joey right now. I totally understand him taking more than 5 minutes on this turn. It takes a lot of calculation. So, but this will actually, I mean, if we assume that Joey, the only way that Joe can mess this up is if Joey does make that ace kind of play and Joe doesn't see Swamy. That seems like the only way that Joe could mess this up, but I don't think Joe will miss that and he'll play Taj pretty quickly. So let's assume for a second that Joey will not secure the victory and Joe will win this game. Then this field is going to be tightened a lot. Joey was a game up on the field and really wanted that first win to basically lock up one of the two spots. Now at 18-8, well, Joe's only a game behind at 17-9. We don't know what Michael and Ori will be up to, and Robin, who are close behind. So we are in for a tight finish here for these two spots if Joe secures the win like we expect him to.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really exciting. Yeah, it looks like Jackson just lost his last game to Lisa Odom. So Lisa is now at 16 and a half and 9.5, and that puts Jackson Smiley at 15 and 11. So I think that means he's probably out of contention at this point, but Lisa is getting into a prime position if she can keep this up to possibly squeeze into that final.
Yeah, this is yeah, Joey here, I think, is trying to consider every option. I think he's now considering gyms and biopics. Maybe let's try analyzing that if we flip back to Quack Corner.
Yeah.
So, with gyms, so Joey, I think, is playing. It's a 33-point play, so it scores a lot, and it does block Haj. So, the idea here, still, I think you automatically play jab if you're Joe, and now, if you're Joey, Caw is probably your best play if you have ACEW, and then Joe just goes out with Lit or something. Now, I guess I've never said in any of these sequences, what if you blocked Lit right away? Right, so what if you... Actually, it's really hard with ACEW to block Lit. Maybe if you do... I really don't want to play AI here, but is there another way you see that can block?
I mean,
Lit?
MIC, Mike, but it doesn't
He has
keep
a
an
W. He has a
outplay.
W. No, he has Joe or Joey would have a W at that point if Jim's.
Oh, after gyms, you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, I guess just AI.
Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, that's a big part of the problem with a play like Jim's, that it keeps the tiles that can't block Lit. So if you do something like Tax or Lax, let's say, then you can't even play both tiles right away. So yeah, it seems like the C and the W together make this a really clunky option, but it looks like Joey has put down tiles, so let's flip back to the board. So Joey has played Attorney. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a very cool move and great flex for camera, but just won't be enough in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, yeah. I don't think that there's no real chance that Joe could play an A out in space for him to go out with macaws. But, gotta hope, I guess.
Well,
he'll be able to play macaw through the
macaws
through the
yeah.
AW, yeah. But won't go out with it, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I wonder if it's best to play Lit or Till first now, just because Jab and Haj are both available. No, he's just going to play Jab first to make it. It's a much safer option than what I was going to suggest. I think it might net an extra point or two, but you never, as a human, want to mess up a game. So, yeah, I guess Joey can now play Mike as
right,
as Chloe was saying.
And maybe that was what he was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Joey has. So Joe hasn't Joe adjusted his clock. So Joey's under a minute now. So he'll play
I wonder
fairly
if we'll
quickly.
See Joey. Yeah, I doubt he'll go overtime.
No, I don't think
that would be. I wonder if that would be a first.
Yeah, I know. I think Joey Malik has only gone overtime once, and it was because he overslept and accidentally came into the room late and only had 5 minutes left on his clock. He still won the game, but I think it's the one time in his Scrabble career he went overtime. From my understanding, I've heard that story.
That's great. Yeah, it's a classic. Like, player oversleeps, comes in with 5 minutes, and somehow wins. Yeah, so he blocks with Whis, it looks like, and Joe will now not be able to go out.
But it will still be fine for Joe. He's ahead by enough points here that even after Macaw as an output, so that's actually a fun idea Joey has. Maybe he thinks, so let's say that Joe misses Macaw as an outplay. If he plays Lax instead, it still will be enough for him to win, but it will only be an 11-point win. So it's a fun idea by Joey to say, hey, let's make sure I'm forcing Joe to find the hard thing that I've already found.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun idea. Unfortunately, for Joey, Joe just has a few too many options with this LNT that even though he's not able to go out, he will still be able to score enough to win.
Yeah, so Ta or All, or Law for that matter, will all block Macaw as an option.
Yeah. I mean, Joey will still be able to go out with Cam making Nam next to attendee. So it won't be
nice.
Yeah, it won't be preventing Joey from going out, but preventing his best outplay.
Yeah, so I feel like I empathize with Joey here, where you know that Joe could take up to 5 minutes and 8 seconds or whatever, and you're just like, I'm gonna lose, man. I know I'm gonna lose. Can you just play one of your 2 tiles left?
But yeah, at this stage in the tournament, especially so many people with such close records trying to get into those top 2 spots, every spread point could end up mattering. So I don't blame Joe at all for looking for the best endgame. And it looks like he's found it with all going, or yeah, is that the best?
Yeah, that should be the best. It blocks Macaw and Joe.
Yeah.
And Joey will play Cam to go out. So a really pretty idea by Joey at the end here, but it will be a 393 to 379 point win for Joe. Really, really fun game. I think a lot of cool ideas throughout, and it just happened to be that, I mean, Joe got both blanks, and sometimes that's enough to win.
Keep going back and forth.
Yeah, I think both players played pretty well here. Joey, some interesting decisions with like flight, for example. I really like that play. But some things that could definitely be discussed more. And then both players, I would like to know if either of them noticed the swive took later on, or if that was just they missed it. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that does seem to be the key mistake potentially on both players' sides. We saw both of them pass up swived options. So, yeah, this will be an interesting dent to the standings. Maybe if we could flip over to the standings at this point, that'd be fun to analyze before we take a break and wait for everyone's games to finish. As a reminder, there's going to be a bit longer of a break here to wait until people actually finish all their games. So, as Chloe said earlier, Lisa did beat Jackson, so she is in the hunt. Ori, we see, has beaten Jeremy Hall, so he is looking good. It will soon, I'm sure, update the Joey and Joe game, and we're still waiting on Michael and Robin. So there are 4 key matchups, basically, this round. We know the results of 3 of them, and we're sort of waiting on the Robin-Michael.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that Michael and Robin game turns out. I think, Joey will be really happy if he can maintain that 1-game lead over Michael, if Michael ends up losing this one, but it'll become even tighter. And it'll become even tighter with so many 17-9 players. Either way, I guess.
Yeah, if Michael loses to Robin, then I think Joey will be 18-8, but we'll have 4 17-9s and 1 16.5 and 9.5. So it would have been very cool. And I just saw in the chat that people would have liked to see their post-mortem. I apologize. If I saw that earlier, I wouldn't have jumped so quickly to the standings. I'm guessing they have left by now. But maybe let's flip back to the board to see if they're still there and if we could catch any last glimpses of their post-game analysis. No, it looks like they've already left. So with that, we will be back soon. We have to wait for all the games to finish, but please keep on coming. And this is now with Joey, the first place person, losing this last game. This will now be a tight race to the top 2 spots in the NWL division.